Households is still one of the major sources of food waste.
Welcome to the Plant-Based Diet. I'm Phoebe Chung-Chua, where we're planting seeds for a lifetime of healthy living. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're talking about something very important in this episode. It is all about food waste, and this is a very significant problem in the United States. We're going to tackle that today. In fact, it is a multi-billion-dollar problem in the United States. The U.S. spends $218 billion a year growing, processing, transporting, and disposing of food that is never even eaten. That's according to ReFed, a collaborative of more than 30 businesses, nonprofits, foundations, and government leaders who are committed to reducing United States food waste in our country. I was just at the Natural Products Expo West 2016 in Anaheim, and I saw a fabulous documentary called Just Eat It. I highly recommend that you check it out. It follows a couple that decides to eat nothing but food waste for 6 months. So they go dumpster diving and they find tons of food. Now, I'm not talking about, the fast food that you throw out in the trash can or something like that. I'm talking about literally packages and packages of unopened food that is fine to eat. So they live on this, and it's amazing what you see in this documentary. How much food is waste. You will be horrified when you see some of the scenes. It'll make you think twice about scraping your plate and just dumping the food in the trash can or down the garbage disposal. Highly recommend that you check it out. My guest today is Robert Ager, the CEO of L.A. Kitchen. He's creating a movement in Los Angeles with a new nonprofit that helps address several growing problems, including food waste, hunger issues, especially within low-income groups and seniors, and the unemployment rate. Robert is no stranger to food kitchen programs. He pioneered the model of L.A. Kitchen during his 24-year tenure as the president of the D.C. Central Kitchen, the country's first community kitchen where food donated by hospitality businesses and farms is used to fuel a nationally recognized culinary arts job training program. Now, since its opening in 1989, the D.C. Central Kitchen has produced over 26 million meals and helped 1,000 men and women gain full-time employment. The kitchen also operates its own revenue-generating business, Fresh Start Catering, as well as the campus kitchen programs, which coordinate similar recycling meal programs in 33 colleges or high school-based kitchens. Welcome to the show, Robert. I'm so excited to have you on. Robert, let's start off by talking about how serious is food waste. I talked about it being multi-billions of dollars that are spent on the industry, but how big really is the food waste problem within the U.S. and globally?
Well, in the U.S., in the West, it's probably the most pronounced. I mean, in the United States, it's estimated that about 40% of the food we produce every day, and it really let that sink in. I mean, that's a gargantuan figure. But half of that is fruits and vegetables that are usually just cosmetically imperfect. So what you have, again, is some of the most beautiful, freshest food in the world, and particularly here in California, being dished under because it's bent, broken, bruised, overripe, underripe, or sometimes just too expensive to go out and get. For example, we heard today about the example of the celery, that in effect the growers will go out and pull off 5 or 6 stalks and cut it off, and you'll get that classic kind of the thing you buy in the store, but those stalks are on the ground. Now, what a waste, but the reality is how do we actually, from an economic perspective, go and get those stalks? So this is one of the things that many of us are focused on. How can we really get into the mechanics of food prevention versus the kind of emotional tug of it's so wrong. It's like, cool, it's wrong, yes, but how do we actually fundamentally make something happen?
We often think of it as the homeless are the ones that are actually starving or going hungry, but you say that there's others that are suffering as well. Tell me about that.
There's a lot of residual impact of hunger. Now, again, it's important to say that you'd be hard pressed to find really severe hunger in a large scale way in America. But what you have is this kind of nagging hunger that erodes our productivity at work. It erodes children's ability to function well. It keeps seniors, instead of living vibrant lives, in the hospital. So what you have is a whole litany of people who don't have enough in any given month to make it through the entire month without wondering where's the next meal going to come from. So right now, the primary face of hunger is going to be a single mom with a kid or two, working 1 or 2 jobs. But if she's working an hourly wage job, it's going to be really, really tough to make it to the end of the month without some kind of support. More and more and more, sadly, you're going to see older Americans, people who didn't have enough money saved, or they lost their retirement in '08. But you have a lot of people who've grown up thinking it'll somehow be magically okay in America, and you're just going to have thousands, millions of older people are just the money's going to run out.
When we look at something like this, it's very easy to start pointing the finger and thinking that it's the big corporations that are to blame. But you tell us that really we've all got a hand in this and we're all responsible for food waste.
We're all at fault here. I mean, for example, restaurants throw away a huge amount of food, but it's because Americans really want these enormous plates of food. I mean, if restaurants offer smaller portions, there's no data to show that customers will come. People really genuinely seem to want this excess. It's the buffet construct. So restaurants throw away a lot, but not as much as you think. They got more and more sophisticated about this. Grocery stores, major source of this, and of course there's a lot of work on the expiration date. Households is still one of the major sources of food waste. People, because unlike Europe, where people in the shop, they shop that day for the food they're going to cook that night, Americans shop once a week to fill up our big refrigerators. This is a big part of it. We've had these big refrigerators in our homes, and we feel the need to fill them up. And so what you have is a predictable amount of food you're just never going to get to. And we're all a little bit guilty of that.
This is something that many people don't seem to understand. A lot of the food is simply thrown out from commercial entities such as big restaurants and corporations, grocery stores. Why isn't this food being donated?
Right. I mean, it's legitimate. I mean, while people are shielded from libel, it's unless it's a case of gross negligence. So somebody might make the case that if somebody picked up, meat in a station wagon on a 90-degree day, and no one stopped and said, "Where's this going? How quickly are you going to get it in refrigeration?" that might be construed as gross negligence. So what many of us did in the 1990s is we really invested in refrigerated vehicles, and we said, for example, all our drivers are certified food handlers. We'll provide containers. We'll show up when it's convenient for you. We'll write tax-deductible receipts based on weight. Again, we'll put it into refrigerated vehicles. In the case of the DC Central Kitchen, we were recooking everything to 165, which kills most pathogens. So it really is creating, I think, an atmosphere of professionalism that makes a business feel like, okay, these people are professionals. I trust that they're going to handle it well. Again, we have a society that after 1940, we had such an explosive economy. It created this false sense of we have so much it doesn't matter. And I think now we're having to reimagine what does it mean in America when we don't have the extra we did. And we have to readjust, I think, to more reasonable portions, more reasonable purchasing. It's going to be very clumsy because you don't see very many politicians talking openly about the fact that the American economy has shifted, that we can't afford to throw away all that we do, and not just food. But think about it, clothes, electronics, we're people.
Total waste.
We throw everything away because everything else is cheap. And I think that era in which we could afford this has really changed, whether it's from an ecological standpoint, an economic standpoint, a social standpoint. You can make a case even a religious standpoint. We've reached the point where I think we have to look really hard at ourselves and determine, what's the new diet going to be? And it doesn't necessarily have to hurt.
Robert, you had such a successful career in D.C. What brought you back to California?
Well, I grew up in Southern California, so there's a great sense of return. And it really, I think, nurtured the man I became, the Southern California culture. And in particular, I was 10 in 1968 when Dr. King and Robert Kennedy were assassinated. And that had a profound impact on me. So a lot of the work I've done began then. But I tend to be kind of an amateur futurist. What are the trends? What are the things coming? So instead of being caught flat-footed, I'm kind of see who's next at the bottom of the totem pole in America, or more importantly, where's the food going to come from to feed those men and women? So California is both supply and demand. You have an unlimited supply of fruits and vegetables because California is the major producer of America's fruits and vegetables. And because, again, half of the food we throw away is merely cosmetically imperfect fruits and vegetables, it's the perfect spot. But interesting enough, Los Angeles County is home to the largest concentration of older people living in poverty. We always think of it as kind of Hollywood and youth, but it's actually a huge number, almost 1.25 million people over 65 now. and the number will double in 10 years. So supply and demand is here. But LA will also be an early outpost of a generation of older people who will be really nutritionally sophisticated. They're going to want vegetarian, they're going to want vegan, they're going to have a real clear sense in their own mind of what they want. But even if they don't, their doctors will be talking more about it, their kids will be talking about it, their grandkids. So everything, I think, is leading towards this moment where you're going to see a real exciting opportunity to take food that would have been thrown away, fruits and vegetables, to create a job training program and an employment opportunity so that men and women can learn skills while they chop up donated product, but then get a job in a business that buys fruits and vegetables from farmers at a reduced price, and then goes out to do contracts, whether it's school foods, senior meals. But the idea of locally sourced, scratch-cooked meals that support local farmers, keep people out of prison, provide healthier, more beautiful meals, but profit never leaves town. It gets reinvested in either wages for employees or back into the job training program. But it's the idea of taking seniors out on curated grocery trips or the farmers markets where you can start to say, you have a very limited budget, let's go out shopping together and with chefs or even men and women from our job training program, and let's vigorously explore how you can stretch your meal. I love to do intergenerational. I think this is the future. I want to see old and young together at every opportunity. Because in the agriculture, it was older people's jobs to kind of tell the legends, the stories of family, to talk about, to teach manners, to talk about a million different things. And I just think we've lost that. And so that's a big part of what I want to do is just put young and old together. So whether it's an after-school program, whether it's a cooking demo, whether it's the way we deliver food. I mean, I'd love to see more and more places put old and young together in a place where people can eat together.
Robert, I know that you're a fan of the plant-based diet, and I know that you are also a fan of bringing in different cultures and ethnicities, especially when it comes to food and meal planning. Tell us a little bit more about that. Why is that so important?
The largest concentration of Iranians, Armenians, South Koreans, people from all over the world, yet we feed people a homogeneous Western meal construct. So the idea of being able to explore not only plant-based, but as you start to wean older people gently, courteously, respectfully over this divide of thinking meat has to be part of everything, and start to tilt towards plant, the vibrant flavors of world cultures can really be a tremendous ally.
When we look to the future, Robert, you have said that plant-based is the way to go. You say that that's economically and socially essential. Why?
Most food, interesting enough, is based on federal reimbursement, school foods, prison foods, all that stuff. And it calls for 3 ounces of protein. But America really hasn't realized that they can't feed this many older people a senior meal based on a protein diet. It just doesn't work. It's not sustainable. It's certainly not healthy, and it's too expensive. So again, this idea of shifting people towards plant-based is economically essential. It's socially essential. But what's funny is I assumed that LA would be an early adapter city, and it will be. But already, of the seniors we work with, 25% are already asking for vegetarian. I was shocked by that. I thought that would be 5-10 years out. Already, you're seeing the early indication of people who are open to a meat-free diet. Now, again, I still enjoy meat, but I just think the idea is meat as part of a meal, not the meal.
Robert goes on to say that there are a lot of things that we can do to improve the situation. And there's simple things like composting, shopping with a grocery list so that you're able to see exactly what you need instead of buying too much of a particular item and then ending up throwing it out. So a few simple things can make a big difference in the food waste problem. If you'd like to learn more, visit theplantbaseddiet.com. And again, thank you to Robert for being on the show. Until next time, eat fit, keep fit, and live fit.